Us for a very political day here. We were at the State House. No bigger political news here in the city of Providence than the newest announced mayoral candidate, Bob DeRobbio. Thank you for taking the time to come in today.
Thank you for having me, Katie.
I know it's been a busy day since you kicked
Definitely.
off this morning at the Old Rhode Island State House. You've been on the campaign trail already. Let's talk a little bit, before we even go into today's speech, about your decision to enter the race.
Well, my decision to enter the race was because I've been a resident of Providence for 62 of my 72 years, and you feel that Providence is just not going in the right direction for everyone. You have issues regarding school systems, and you have issues regarding the physical structure of the city. You have the pension liability, you have the medical liabilities, you have homelessness, you have traffic cameras, you have a number of things that are just affecting the city that people are just not happy about.
And so you kick off this week, and earlier this week, the mayor just gave his budget address for the coming year. What's your sense of the true fiscal position of the city of Providence as we stand here?
Well, obviously, you know, Providence is a tale of two cities. It's one city shows a sign of being prosperous and wealthy, and we can afford everything, and people can send their students to their kids to private schools. But I don't believe everybody lives in that part of the city. I believe people are really struggling. And when you look at the idea of the traffic cameras, where is the greatest impact of those traffic cameras? But in the sections of the city that can least afford to pay the fines for those traffic cameras. I mean, 20,000 tickets, and it's unbelievable what's happening here.
Well, it's still on hiatus as the legal proceedings are moving forward. Court dates have been postponed. We just got the email. The traffic cameras, you talk about the tale of two cities. Let's talk about this morning, because your speech did focus so much on education. How can the city improve the education system?
It's my belief that education stems from putting students in the correct environment to learn. The correct environment is not an environment that has leaky roofs, that floods during rainstorms, that has poor facilities, poor structures. I believe that you've put them in the right environment, they are going to progress, and they are going to be the types of students that we're going to be proud of. And the teachers working in those conditions are going to give the best effort possible.
Well, we have seen a little bit of a give and take between the teachers and the city looking for a raise. Again, looking at the city's fiscal condition, and we've heard from the mayor this week, let's talk about the pension liability. That's the elephant in the room always in terms of the true fiscal condition of the city of Providence. I mean, how can this begin to be addressed? It's been ongoing for years. This is not a new problem. It seems that every elected official manages to push it along.
Right.
When does it stop?
Two ways. One, if the city ever declares bankruptcy, and the other, if the city ever clears up the pension issue. So, you know, we are definitely not on the side, or I'm not on the side of the city declaring bankruptcy, because there's too much to give. There's too much here. There's too much enthusiasm in making Providence great. Providence should be the bellwether for the state. The governor should be proud of presenting Providence to new businesses that are coming into the state. Instead, as mentioned in several political pieces, it's being used against her as a campaign, because there's so much crime in the city and there's so much violence, and it's becoming a negative rather than a positive for her. The other issue is, you have to sit down and negotiate with the unions in particular, and look at contracts that are forward contracts, not trying to penalize people that have already reached their retirement benefits, and contribute more money towards the pension system.
And so you talk a little bit about other issues facing the city as well, the issue of crime. How can we better address that here in the city?
I believe that crime is associated with some of the things that are happening with the licensing board. It's like, if you pay the appropriate amount of money, you can keep your place open until 2 a.m. And then if you want to get around that issue, you just hire a contractor and keep it open until 5 a.m. And then those people are out on the streets. Where do they go? But become a source of crime. The other is the part about recreation centers. There just aren't enough good facilities available to keep the students, to keep the kids off the street on weekends and give them something positive to do.
And so you talk about the board of the licensing board, which we've covered quite extensively here. So if you were mayor, I mean, would you just go and shake that up?
Yes, I would. Totally, totally. And make sure that the businesses that are applying for licenses have to come through the city to provide the appropriate protection and to provide the appropriate supervision from that time period of 12 midnight to 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. in the morning.
And so one of your campaign proposals as well is really good government in terms of lobbying, maybe, if you will.
Lobbying to the extent that you can't work in a city office and then become a lobbyist and turn around and sell things back to the city and be making $50,000 salary because of who you know or because of the I know a guy type attitude. That has to go. There has to be a pledge saying that once you are employed by the city, that you cannot use that as a stepping stone to become a lobbyist, at least until I leave office.
Is this pertain to the speed cameras, perhaps?
Definitely.
Might pertain to the speed cameras. Well, clearly they've been looking at it as a revenue grab. I mean, they've been making a lot of money since the hiatus. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to make it work, or is there not, in your opinion?
Well, I believe that if there's a desire to put them back, and I'm not a strong advocate for putting them back, I believe in more of a physical presence on the street to stop speeding rather than a speed camera that you have very little control over. But if they do go back, there has to be proper, I want to say proper indoctrination, proper overview to the members of the community. They have to work together on where they go and what times they are going to be utilized, and what the effects of the community are. We just can't be ticketing people who can least afford to pay those tickets. So it's just a downward spiral in the city.
Speaking of the city, we've got the Superman building looming just on the other side of the camera. We oftentimes point to it. As most folks say, as Providence goes, so goes the state. But a lot of times, as Superman goes, so goes the city. What's the best and highest use between Providence working with the state to see that building not darkened as it has been for the last several years?
One of my campaign posters that has my picture, in fact you have it as part of your street scene there, has the Superman building lit up, and one of my consultants said, that building is dark, it's not lit. And it prompted me to say, at the end of my first term, that building will have lights going on in it. Everything possible will be done to get people, to get a business in there, and to make it one of the shining stars of the city of Providence. It's not a 46-foot skyscraper.
That's my next question.
It's not that, but it's a beautiful building, and it is a symbol of the city of Providence.
You got ahead of my skis here as I was now looking backwards to the 195 land. As we know, the 195 Commission is going through their process, but does have to work with the city of Providence. And we saw last night the proposal go before the City Plan Commission for a variance because it is well outside the constraints of what is currently on the books.
Well, higher is better.
So talk with us about your thoughts on that. You've seen the renderings, you saw the reaction that was there last night. What's your thoughts on this Fane Tower?
As a single building within that place, it certainly is not going to be, to me, the most attractive type building in the city. If there's a long-range plan of putting 6, 7, 8 structures surrounding it that complement one another, then certainly there's room to negotiate and say, let's look at the variances. But on its own, I would rather have 6 Superman buildings in the city of Providence rather than one 48-story building.
Well, we'll see what happens with Fane moving forward. We are keeping the eye on 195. But let's talk about the land in the city. We do know so much, over 40%, is held by nonprofits.
And that's certainly an area that can help solve some of the pension crisis too, in looking at the colleges and universities and asking for greater contributions from them for the services that the city is already providing them. I think that's one area. The second area, as I stated earlier, is looking at any future negotiations on contracts to try and draw more money to pay for that, to help pay down the pension issue. The third might be to pay the pension payments on time rather than showing that the city has a surplus and then making your payments into the system.
So you've been keeping an eye on that leisure sheet.
I have.
Well, GoLocal contributor Michael Riley often writes on that issue. We've been featuring it here as well. So we've kind of gone through a rundown of sort of the big issues, the campaign kickoff from today. Bob, what's next?
To get out there, to meet as many people as possible, to get into the neighborhoods, to shake their hands, to listen to their concerns, and to try and give them a feeling that there is a voice that is going to speak out for them and is going to listen to them and is going to address their concerns.
Well, Bob DeRobbio, I appreciate your taking the time to come in today after a big, busy kickoff event that took place this morning. I'm sure we'll have you back in soon.
Thank you very much.
Bob DeRobbio, thanks so much.
Pleasure.
I'll let you go off to the campaign
Thank
trail.
you.
Okay. Bob DeRobbio made the official announcement this morning. He has tossed his hat in the ring for Providence mayor. Talked with him a little bit about his views on education, crime, economic development, 195 and Superman, and more. I appreciate his taking the time to come here into Go Local to talk politics. It's been a political day. We kicked off at 3 o'clock at the State House. Majority Leader Joe Shikarchi, representing District 23 in Warwick, not interested in running for mayor of Warwick now that Scott Evedision is heading to RIPTA. Made that announcement today on Go Local. We'll have that up so you can read as well. Senator James Sheehan was on with us talking about his legislation to look at the magistrate process. Wants to revamp it and revise it so that it's a merit-based selection process, not an appointment-based one. We talked with him about that up at the State House and then came back here. We had Ray Rickman, former state representative, give his big view. And then we had the RIDOT, Becky Bowman-White, in studio to talk about the ripple effect, her own story of being a survivor of drunk driving and talking with the youth about the importance of making good decisions. So we appreciate your watching. We'll be back tomorrow at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center with more live. We look forward to seeing you. Wish everyone a good Thursday evening. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Go. Go. Go.